No, you don't hear a ringtone. No. You have 3 speakers. You have just another speaker. No, I don't hear only audio. I have 3 speakers. Just another speaker. No, I don't hear only audio. Cool. I just need to restart your computer real quick and see if it works. Oh no, I'm afraid to. Okay. Let's try. Hey, maybe it's right here. Do you see how they have it off? Is it? Oh, really? It does. But it is.
I'm right here.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, there are 13 people and I'm one of them. So we have 12 people online. That means we have actually quorum. I don't have my gavel. Oh, I don't have my gavel.
You don't have your gavel?
No, I forgot my gavel. Okay, I'm not actually. You're not allowed to sneeze today. No, it's everything's allergies now, right? Okay. I think I've just figured out how to manage everything I have to manage. I just won't go into presenter. You're not allowed to sneeze. No, it's everything's allergies now. How do I mute them? Okay. I think I've just figured out how to manage it. Right there. I just muted all of you who are watching using Zoom. I do have that set.
Okay.
They've been unmuting themselves, apparently.
Do it so they can't unmute themselves.
Oh, I want them to be able to unmute themselves. Okay. Okay. I'm about to call us to order. I'm going to set the recorders then. Zoom records, and Zoom is making an audio recording, but I'm still doing some backup stuff. And okay, I got your emails. I need a packet because I don't know what comes first, except I have to call us to order. So we are called to order at 3:04 p.m. Hi, everybody. I think the first step is a Pledge of Allegiance. I forgot to ask if somebody will lead us in a Pledge of Allegiance ahead of time. So, will somebody please volunteer to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Thank you. Professor Fiebig. Please rise and face the flag. Okay. In case I didn't verbalize that was Professor Fiebig. Thank you. Are there any public comment cards? There is one. Okay. We have a public comment from Ann Davis. And in order to speak and be heard, you'll have to have a microphone in your hand. Thanks. Thank you.
Shall I begin?
Begin. You have 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you. So sorry, Dr. E, I already emailed you about this. I didn't know that I had this opportunity. We had a wonderful math and computer science division meeting on Thursday, and we were able to give a lot of feedback to our dean, and we broke out in small groups, and more than one group had the same concern that I'm addressing now. I think that STEM courses will be disproportionately hit by the difficulties presented and challenges presented to us. I've already had a student drop the class. I haven't even had a chance to communicate with her. I would like to explore the possibility of students much later in the semester being able to drop without a W and not have it negatively impact their financial aid. And I have no idea what level in the chain of command that kind of decision, whether it could be local, it has to go all the way up to Sacramento. But if it can't be done here, can that question be bumped up? And can we start to explore that to try and mitigate this negative impact on our students?
Thank you.
Am I excused?
You are. We appreciate that. And for everybody, when you're holding that microphone, please make sure like you actually can hear yourself through the speakers here. Okay. Approval of minutes is listed on here. It has been recommended to me that this meeting doesn't actually have any action, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to determine what actions will be done during this meeting, and based on what I perceive the impact is. Approval of minutes, I think, is, well, as you're going to see in item E, approval of minutes is not necessarily set in stone. So are there any recommended changes to the minutes? Now, for those of you who are participating through Zoom, if you click on Manage Participants, you will see a list of participants. And if you go down underneath that list, you will see a Raise Hand button. And that's the button that I'm going to ask you to use to do just that, to raise your hand. And so what I'll do is I will ask you, if you're participating in the Zoom meeting, to go ahead and click on that, raise your hand so that we can see that that's functional. Oh, there we go. Oh, look at that. A lot of you are raising your hands. Okay, so that functionality is there. I have muted you all, and so if you don't have the ability to raise your hand at the moment, then I ask that you please unmute yourself and verbalize that to us now.
Yes, I'm able to.
Okay, I only need to hear verbal confirmation from folks who aren't able to raise their hands. And I see 4 people whose hands are not raised. Oh, now I see 2. Now I see 1. And I don't know who you are because it says your phone number.
Oh.
I'm going to unmute this individual. If you're the one with the phone number, are you able to raise your hand? Hello? Okay, then I'm going to ask for you, the one who called it. Who can you tell us who you are?
Wendy.
But I see your name as well.
Can you hear me, Matt?
Oh,
Wendy
I see.
Luco?
You're calling for the voice, but then you're also logged in on the computer?
I'm on my phone, but
Because I see your name.
yeah, how to call in, I guess. Yeah.
I saw you were able to raise your hand, so we're good there?
Yes.
Okay. Just had to make sure, folks. Now I need you all to lower your hands. Excuse me, I started running things using Confer Zoom like today. Okay, in that case, I will ask, are there any amendments to the minutes from, to be specific, from March 9th? We'll go with Sylvia. I'm sorry, Professor Rigon. Okay. Professor Rigon, do you have something to say?
No, sorry, my apology.
Okay. Then will you please put your hand down? And Professor Luco, do you have something for the March?
I think it was just for was that the minutes that we had to correct, or was that February?
We're on March 9th still.
Oh, no correction.
Okay, I'm going to mute you now.
Sorry.
There was a hand up, I hear. Professor Rapue. Rapu. Oh, okay. Okay, we're going to record that in this meeting's minutes. That meeting's minutes, so there's an error in. So what we can do is we can strike that from that meeting's minutes, because I don't think we can retroactively change what was said during that meeting, but we will strike it. Oh, so we have the attendance. We have the attendance issue. Okay, thank you. Then will you? Will somebody make a note that we're going to strike that? And then update the attendance as well. Thank you. And then everybody in the room did sign in, correct? Okay. And
thank you. Then
I had to remute. Okay. Are there any other corrections to the March 9 minutes? Then we will approve those by unanimous consent. And then move on to the March 24th minutes. It was brought to my attention that we were a little bit too efficient during the last meeting when using unanimous consent to approve the minutes. And there is a correction to the minutes. And I believe, Professor Luco, you need to raise your hand. I'll just unmute you. I know it's... So Professor Luco has a correction to the February 24th minutes. I know what it is, so I'll tell it to you on her behalf. The February 24th minutes are included in your packets. And there was a statement made during the calendar discussion, and this statement appears on, I apologize, folks. I thought I was going to have this here. There was a statement made that Professor Chafee had said that there is not a spring break-like event in fall. When we were, I believe the recommendation was to consider dealing with spring break differently. Professor Chafee said there was not a spring break-like event in fall. Professor Luco is also credited with making that statement. Professor Luco's statement was actually that there is a spring break-like event in fall, and that it is Thanksgiving break. So she relayed that to me personally. I'm not sure why it's not being weighed in on during the Zoom meeting, but if somebody would please make a motion to make that change. Okay. Okay, so it has been moved by Professor Rose, seconded by Professor Hintzman. You are apparently taking my word for it because I can't find it at the moment. So this is a revision to a previously approved item. And so we actually need a 2/3 majority to amend those minutes. I'm actually not going to do this at the moment because the motion has been made and, well, the motion has been made and seconded. I can't undo that. Okay, then I'm going to ask all in favor of approving the correction to the minutes, if there's any discussion. Is there any discussion on correcting the minutes? Professor Cairo. This is for 3 weeks ago. Okay. This is about to be fun because votes that are taken in a teleconference meeting need to be done by roll call. But what I propose is that, no, we're just going to do it by roll call. Well, okay, so the statement is like, can we withdraw the motion and do it at a different time? I'm anticipating that probably the next 1 to 2 academic senate meetings will also have to be run via teleconference. And I understand your point. Professor Constantine? No, Robert's rules can be suspended by a 2/3 majority. But the roll call vote for a teleconference meeting is actually due to the Brown Act, not because of Robert's rules. Well, parts of it have remained in place. So, yes. Let's proceed with the roll call vote. Professor Rose, maybe just say people's last names instead of, I'm going to unmute all, oh geez.
Constantine?
Actually, I just realized something. Those of you who are participating by teleconference, if you would please click yes, that will serve as your roll call vote, or no. And then those of you in the room, all in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? One abstention, Professor Cairo. I just took a screenshot. Okay, screenshot at 3:18 p.m. That's so when I look at it later, I'll know. Okay, thanks for indulging me on that. Do we have PCC-FA here for a constituency report? Just Professor Kiwat. Professor Kiwat, I needed to call on you. I just had a brain fart. Go ahead. Oh, yes, please.
You may already be aware that the FAA sent a letter giving its
I think the message is please read your email. And okay. Thank you. And then we'll need the roaming mics for any other comments. But thank you for projecting it. And I had to remute. Is it classified? Sorry, adjunct faculty, is there a report? Let's wait till the microphone reaches you. And please hold it close to your face. Thank you.
Yes. Even though it's difficult for our committee to meet right now, we're still trying to get agenda items so the adjunct faculty committee meeting or can be held. Besides that, I know everything was a bit thrown off for Professional Development Day, but one good thing that happened, we were able to use the adjunct office C109 as a remote instruction space. So we were able to help a lot of adjunct faculty who had questions and issues about migrating to remote instruction. We were able to assist them on Professional Development Day, which I think speaks a lot to the space and how it's being used, and hopefully we can get some more in the future. And I did have some adjunct faculty reach out to me with concerns about getting paid for the days that the campus is being closed or not being allowed to have face-to-face instruction. So I did send a message to the FA, and hopefully they can get us a response. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a classified Senate representative here? Okay. Associated students? Okay. Management Association? Okay. The next item will not be here by request of the presenter. And now we are to an information item with possible action, but I'm going to recommend that a motion is not made at this time. It's a recommendation. And I would like to introduce Dr. Androjonis. This is a continuation of a discussion that started 3 weeks ago. Those of you who were in the room at that time may recall that I shared with you a blue flyer and a yellow flyer. One was rationale for keeping winter. That was the blue flyer because blue is cold. And then the other was the rationale for moving winter session into the summer, there you go, into the summer season. And since summer is yellow, that was on yellow paper. At least that's how it works in my head. But Professor Androjonis has graciously agreed. Professor.
Well, I'm a professor at Cal State LA. So.
Dr. Androjonis, our superintendent president, has graciously agreed to come to the Academic Senate so that she can share with you directly the impetus for the discussion that we've been having.
So the impetus for the discussion we've been having is that I have looked at the calendar. Since I've gotten here, I've been asked questions about winter intercession. What do you think about winter intercession? And I've had some concerns about it, largely because of when spring semester ends, because spring semester ends 2 weeks into June. And at that point in time, it is very difficult for students to get internships and summer jobs. And more, what's being required of people when they go into new jobs or when they go into programs is that they have hands-on experience in jobs and what they're doing. And so that was my primary concern. In fact, when the calendar committee started meeting last year, I spoke with various folks and I said, I get the need for the winter intercession. What I would like to see, hopefully, is a calendar that can end before June 1st so that students could have an opportunity to do a summer internship. Because by the time summer ends, or by the time spring ends, it's June 17th and a lot of those internships are gone. As well, there are issues with scheduling dual enrollment teachers because we have dual enrollment classes, which we're trying to grow in our local high schools, and those are full semester classes. So if they're starting in spring, right when our winter is starting, trying to get adjuncts or faculty who can teach in those dual enrollment sections while we're also trying to schedule for winter and then spring, it's very difficult. I also think that, and along the way, what I've been asked is, well, how do you know? How do you know this is the case? And so the short answer is I have a hunch based on many, many years of building schedules, being an instructional dean, being an executive vice president, a chief instructional officer, chief student services officer. You know, I know how difficult it is to get those final transcripts done at the end of spring so that students can produce their transcript for their transferring institution. Okay, I'm a talking head. They can produce their transcripts for their transferring institution by July 1st, which is usually the date. Now, when I've pointed that out, some folks have said, well, it's not really a problem, just hire more classified staff to process the transcripts in spring, which is not necessarily also possible. So along the way, you know, again, people have said, well, how do you know? What's your evidence? What's your proof? And the bottom line is I can't produce evidence that can't be collected because we don't have a different schedule. So when the Senate President, Dr. Hennis, came to me and said, you know, this is what the calendar committee is looking at, another year of winter to provide continuity, and would you consider doing that? And I said, yes, I would consider another year of the winter calendar, but I'd like 3 years after that, over a 3-year period, to have spring start in January so that we can study this, so we can collect data. And it's not getting rid of that opportunity to teach classes. What it is doing is flipping the two. So spring would start in January, end by the second week of May, and then there would be an early summer term, and then there would be summer. So it's exactly the same number of sessions, but moving the start of spring to January. And part of my job is to take recommendations and to present them to the Board of Trustees, who is ultimately the one who votes on the calendar. And in my conversations with the trustees, what they have said to me is that they really would like to see our calendar, our graduation be in May and allow for internships and summer jobs. So that's basically where all of this has come from. Yeah.
What I intended with this was that this would be not only an opportunity for Dr. Androgenis to share with us her rationale, but for
using hand sanitizer.
The Academic Senate to ask questions directly. Mm-hmm. And so if there are any questions, and I'm going to change the screen a little bit here. So I had you sit here based on a comment here, but I'm going to mute the chat so that I can see if anybody on Zoom is raising their hand. But I did see Professor Lang had her hand raised. And so I need to bring you a microphone.
Thank you very much for coming to the Academic Senate to talk with us. I've been teaching, I think many of us, for over 20 years at PCC, and many of our students do get internship jobs, and many of them get a National Science Foundation internship, which usually about 10 weeks. And so far, I haven't had a single student who is being denied internships or jobs because the calendar when they would finish the spring semester. Just currently that I have 3 students who already got the internship, but the only condition they have is they must learn how to program. Otherwise, no matter when they finish the semester, they won't be able to get that job. So I'm just wondering that since many faculties would like to have the winter for anything other than to help students to make a transition if they didn't do well in the fall, and then their evidence to show that the winter do help them to catch up a little bit. So I'm just throwing it out to see what will be the balance of these two.
Well, and I can see that, and I appreciate it. We did do some initial just surveying, looking at internships, and it appeared the number and the variety of internships was reduced by the time you got to June 17th. The other thing is that the Robert G. Freeman Center for Career and Completion just opened last April, and one of the stated goals is to expand the number, the type, the range of internships. And so one of the pieces of that is to make sure that everything that is possible would be available by that time. Again, I want to emphasize that I am absolutely open to reconsidering this decision after we collect some data once we have a different calendar, because it might be that we're wrong. It might be that actually there was no increase in student internships. It might be a lot of things, but we have no way to determine that unless we have an opportunity to see if that results. Not to mention the issue about transcripts, that oftentimes students are completing whatever they need in that spring term. They need that transcript, and it's very difficult if classes don't end until June 12th.
And we can also ask the variety of industries that if matters when students started internships, because from my understanding, internship it's a learning experience where students should be allowed to come in many different times. There's really no starting. Of course, jobs are separate issues. I'm not against it. I'm just trying to see that what the balance would be, because students also that have issues that the UC will not accept transcript if they start the summer instead of in the winter.
Right, but that early summer term would be done, but we have our full complement of classes in the primary terms of fall and spring. And so winter intersession or early summer, what have you, is not designed to be the place where capstone courses are. Really, it's about the winter it's about fall and spring. So what I believe is important is focusing on those primary terms and when they occur. Again, I'm open to the research, but as I've said, I can't collect the research if we don't make an adjustment to the calendar to see how it would work.
Okay, we have Professor Ruiz, Professor Chafee, and Professor Hintzman, and Professor Cairo.
Do you mind if I sit? Just
No, not at all.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for being here, and I appreciate, that's the first actually that I'd heard about wanting the data, because we simply don't have it, and so we need to know, and so I appreciate that. Sorry, am I being loud enough?
There you go.
I'm sorry, okay. I'm very loud, usually. I did speak with I'm in languages, I represent languages, and so everybody within 100% of the faculty in ESL or other languages have responded that the winter intersession is critical. I've also heard the same thing from non-credit. We might share some of the same reasons. But basically because when we have 2 summer sessions back to back, the second one does not fill. Our enrollment is just gone. But in winter it does, and it allows them to continue their studies to prepare them for the next semester. Lots of reasons why they really do want to keep winter. One of them said that a lot of internships don't start until later in June. One of them gave me 2 examples of internships that started later in June. They say they happen all year, so why are we changing our calendar for those when, this is, yeah. So one thing I do want to say is that they are not opposed to contracting winter to a 5-week session or doing something differently.
I think the calendar committee really tried to do that. My understanding is in looking at my suggestion of how spring needs to end by June 1st, they looked at all different machinations of it, 4-week, 5-week, 6-week, but spring with no spring break, spring with no finals week, I mean, all kinds of things. So my understanding was that they tried and they were not successful.
Okay.
So,
well, we were happy about those
Yeah.
options because
Yeah.
they said we're flexible in other ways, but leave us our winter so that we maintain that contact with our students. A lot of ours are international students as well, so they'll stay here in order to continue, but in summer they do want some time to go home. Thank you.
Okay.
Professor Chafee is next.
Yeah, so this is along the same lines. If it was possible to gather data if we did eliminate spring break as a test, would seem like a sort of a halfway test between eliminating winter and testing that, to see whether or not if you could back it up a week or a week and a half, maybe that might solve the problem. No one wants to lose spring break, but I'd rather lose spring break than winter. That having been said, you say the calendar committee couldn't make it work, but I'm not sure why you couldn't make it work without a spring break. It doesn't really quite make sense to me. I mean, people may not like it, but it would certainly work. You simply end the semester 16 weeks after it started. But I'd like to give that a try as part of the data gathering aspect of this.
I can't speak to the calendar committee because I'm not on it. That's anecdotal.
I can, because I am. So we surveyed the campus. We surveyed managers, faculty, classified staff, and students. And among the choices were shortening winter, removing spring break, removing finals week. And it's the first time I've seen all 4 constituency groups all agree on the same thing: don't do any of those things. I realized that it was not presented as do these or you lose winter, which may have produced a different result. The other thing is when we counted out the weeks in the calendar, there turned out to be larger issues. I had thought of the idea of shortening the primary terms to 15 or 14 weeks. It turns out there are accreditation reasons why we cannot do a 14-week calendar. A 15-week calendar is problematic for a couple of reasons. I don't remember all of them right now, but if we have classes that meet for 8 weeks and then 8 weeks, it's difficult to split that in an odd numbered term. As far as eliminating the finals week, that would have implications throughout the rest of the term, but that may possibly be an option in conjunction with removing spring break, but none of those actually got us to where the term would end on June 1st or before.
Can I just ask a follow-up? I'll just back up really loud. Is it necessary that June 1st is some sort of holy grail date, or could it be June 5th? I mean, if you move it up, you move it up.
Well, I think if you look at traditional calendars, June 1st is oftentimes when an internship starts. It also would maximize the amount of time that if students weren't necessarily in an internship or that they were in a summer job, that they could earn money that they need to either live or put towards what they're going to do in the fall. So I think it's really about offering more options during the summer when there are often jobs, summer internships, those kinds of things. So it's really about maximizing the summer months.
Professor Hansman is next.
I sort of have a two-part thing, and I don't really need a response, but I just want to confirm that I do have faculty in mathematics who pretty much every June say that they're having to give tests early or give tests remotely so that their students can go on these internships. So it is impacting our students. I know that for a fact. And I like the idea of collecting some data to see what's going on. But one of the things that really struck me as a motivator for this change is when I looked at the data that was presented showing how many students we have in fall who we don't see again in spring. And so when we have that winter break, there's a lot of students that don't come back to us in spring. And to me, that is also something that we really need to be cognizant of and try and address. I mean, where are they going? Probably, I don't know for sure, but probably to a local community college that's starting earlier than we are. I hope they're not just falling off educational tracks completely, but that was really a concern to me, is where are those students going and what can we do to not lose so many of them?
And that has been an issue in terms of student success and making sure that we get as many students to go from fall into spring.
I have a couple of questions. If you don't mind, I'll ask the question and wait for the response before I ask more.
Sure.
So right now, how many internships does PCC currently have now?
I don't have that actual number off the top of my head.
Okay, and the reason I'm asking is that I guess a lot of these questions I'm going to be asking, I'm looking for data that in essence, the college is asking us to make a decision without the data. And to me, that's the biggest problem.
Some of this data was provided to the calendar committee. I believe Dr. Juni looked at the number of internships that were available based on the third week of May, the beginning of June, and the second week of June. But I don't have those numbers off the top of my head.
Right, well, that's the problem. He said these are internships that are available versus how many students are actually taking or on internships.
But we can't expand that number if we don't have the dates that potentially work for students.
Correct, but you're saying potentially versus, I'm just saying, how many do we have right now? Because if we eliminate the winter or make this change, in essence, what we're saying is, I think the last numbers were about 15,000 students enrolled in winter. So we're going to disrupt 15,000 students for many internships, and that's what I'm saying. How many exactly do we have at the moment? So versus how many are available versus how many do we have right now? I think there are two different answers. And so that's all. Right now, we do not know how many students are currently have internships, correct?
Well, again, I'm not the one who has that information, and I was not part of the calendar committee.
Okay, so...
And I just want to say that in terms of making a decision, it's making a recommendation.
Okay, making a recommendation.
Just being clear.
And if do you know of these internships that are available or possibly will be available, how many are full-time, how many are part-time?
I think my answer is going to be the same if you're going to ask specific questions like that I don't have the specific information. But I also want to point out that this isn't just about internships. This is about all kinds of other points that have been made. So
agreed. I'm just focusing on the various parts.
Mm-hmm.
The other one was dual enrollment. So how many students are involved in dual enrollment?
Okay, again, you're asking me a specific question, but what I can tell you is we have 4 dual enrollment agreements with our local districts, and we have the other 4 in the works. So right now, our numbers are increasing, and within a year, we hope to have doubled or tripled the number of students we have in dual enrollment. That was a goal that was given to me by the Board of Trustees because they want to increase the number of in-district students who go to PCC, and one way to do that is to expand dual enrollment. So this is something that we see growing, not contracting.
Okay, but so here, I guess one of my question is, administrators are coming to us, providing us information, and when I ask specific questions, last week was Dr. Juni, this week it's you, and it seems like nobody has that information, so I understand you don't know. So if the answer is, I don't know, could you please just say, but you could get it at this location? So that would help me so I don't have to continue asking these questions. My next one, it says, the issue about final transcripts, and you said that this would be difficult to hire more people. And so my question would be, how would it be difficult?
The point is that if the issue is that we need to do transcripts, we would have an easier time utilizing the staff we already have to complete those transcripts rather than having to staff up and pay more money to classified staff to process transcripts because we need to do it in a very quick time. That's not a good use of college resources.
I'm going to interrupt at the moment because time is up, and I need a motion to extend.
I have my hand up.
Professor Rose did have her hand up.
I move to extend by 10 minutes.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Professor Jaramillo had her hand up first. To second, is there any opposition to extending by 10 minutes? Right. Parliamentarian. Okay, there's not discussion on motion to extend. So all in favor of extending by 10 minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Professor Miranda is opposed. And the Zoom participants, would you please vote? Okay, that's a majority. Are there any opposed Zoom participants? Professor Rigon? Okay. Are there any abstentions? Point of order, not an abstention. Okay. Professor Jerome, Professor Dean, and Professors Benita, you're abstaining. Also, Professor Foster is abstaining. Okay, point of order, go ahead.
I've noticed there's been at least one hand raised, and we have one member who's asked multiple questions, and I think we need to give other voices a chance to be heard. That's a point of order or a comment.
Then we'll allow. This is the reason that we're having this, so that the dialogue can occur. Your point of order is appreciated. I will involve the Zoom folks.
Well, we can extend one more time. Okay, thank you. Okay, so last week, Dr. Juni said that historically there have been many transcripts that have not been able to be sent. Do we have that number? How many?
I wouldn't have that number.
Okay. We've had in the past a second summer, so we should have, or we should have that data to show how many students enroll in the second summer, to make that comparison. Why has that data not been provided to demonstrate that there is a large student need, or maybe there's a lack of a student need to take summer two? Where are those numbers, where's that data?
This is a calendar committee question, it's not for me. I don't know what, this was all discussed in the calendar committee, so it sounds to me like something you could ask the Academic Senate President who was on that committee, but having me answer that question doesn't.
Well, I just thought that you being the president, I thought, no disrespect, I just thought that you might know, so maybe it's a question for Crystal, that maybe she has that data. Not that I'm asking her to say relay it, but
Not
so I can
necessarily.
just send an email. And then finally, one last thing.
Mm-hmm.
Historically, here at PCC, ever since Dr. Kostler was here, every 2, 3, maybe 4 years, we have a new president. And then so you've been here a year, and then we have another winter, and then we agreed to do this 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
By that time, historically, you would have moved on to another college. So this change would have occurred, and we'd have a new president. And so that's what I'm afraid of, that now we have a new president with a different vision, different goal, and we're stuck with this second summer.
Well, I can understand your concern, but I think the fact that the Board of Trustees did a formal investiture, and the fact that I've framed much of what I've been talking about around the celebration of our centennial in 2024, as well as in my goal to be the first college in the state to close all equity achievement gaps in 2027, I think I've articulated my desire to be here and to see these projects forward. So I can appreciate the fact that I am the 6th president in 10 years. I absolutely get that. But I also think that what I have talked about, what I have shared with the community, really is about a long-term vision. And why I felt confident in saying, let's do winter another year, and then let's change for 3 years and collect data. I understand your point, but I think I've made a commitment to being here.
Okay, and now we're going to hear from Professor Luco. Can you unmute yourself?
unmute myself. Sure. Can you hear me?
We can all hear you. Yes, go ahead.
Okay, great. Well, I can kind of help out here with a need, and I think a lot of the CTE courses that are high unit could benefit from having more of a trimester type thing where they have a longer summer to do some of the higher unit courses. My 2+ year program could go down potentially to 18 months if we do remove winter. I do have 6 sites that my students intern at, and I could put up to 2 to 3 students per site. I haven't been able to really use winter for that because of the short amount of weeks. We do have in our curriculum Auto 170, Business 170, CIS 170, and MIT 170. Mine being one of the oldest internship written classes that CNI approved. And it's hard to get off the ground when you have a very small window to work with. Besides that, there's the external internships that come through from the Tournament of Roses and other places, and they do look for a 3-month window to work with the students. So, I mean, just besides the internships, it's just we haven't been able to get it off the ground because of the calendar. And so we managed to get some through in spite of that, and it just takes so much head work ahead of time. But, you know, I don't know if other CTE areas can chime in on removing winter. We lose a lot of students in winter and summer because there's nothing for them to really take in the winter and the summer the way it is currently.
Thank you, Professor Luco. Professor Jaramillo?
Hi, I was just going to be talking in the natural sciences. So just in winter, I had 3 flyers come to me to post to students that I posted, and all of the students in my class, which were 30, said I would go for it, but I would have to lose 2 weeks of class, which is impossible. I myself have allowed students to take their finals early, which is quite difficult. Doing a chemistry final with losing a week of instruction is very difficult, but that's what we're asking our students to do internships. And most of the NSF internships in chemistry and biology start in May, so there are plenty to see.
Thank you. Are there any other hands either? I just put your hand down, Professor Luco. I don't know if you had it raised again or still, but just FYI. Are there any other hands in the room or on Zoom?
Okay, there's one more.
Thank you. Professor Constantine, I've decided that this is stupid at the current times
Yes,
to be handing
exactly.
a microphone around
That's
the
why
room
I have mine right
without
here.
sanitizer. Professor Constantine.
Yes. In terms of the decision being made, how much input from the students would be incorporated into the decision?
I think I need Matt to weigh in on that because I believe they were part of the calendar committee.
Yes, we have student representatives on the calendar committee. They are in the room sometimes. And they got to participate in 2 surveys. One was the aforementioned survey, and the other was that the winter students were asked basically, why are you taking winter classes? We have not asked them, do you want to keep winter? From my conversation with the president of Associated Students, the Associated Students, this may be outdated information, but as of the last Board of Trustees meeting, did not have an official position on winter. To that point, neither does the Academic Senate. That's part of what this conversation is intended to inform. And then the action that we'll take in a subsequent meeting, I think, is one to determine the Academic Senate stance on winter. Okay.
Great.
Any other, so you get to go twice if there are no other, if everybody who wants to speak has spoken. I see no hands on Zoom. Now is your time. Okay. And I see no other hands in the room. Professor Cairo.
Thank you, Matt, Professor Hennis. So I just spoke to Crystal, and she does not want to provide me the information because she says that I was rude to you. If that's the way you took it, I apologize because my intention was not to be rude or to come off mean. All I'm trying to do is obtain information. So she said the only way she would provide information is if I would ask you. But you're telling me that Dr. Juni was on the committee so I can ask these questions. All I'm trying to do is just get to be guided to the right person to ask to be able to obtain information. I'm not on the calendar committee. I was not aware that this information was handed out. And I'm just trying to find information. So once again, if my questions were, if you interpreted it to be rude, they were not intended to, and I do apologize. But I'm just trying to get this information, that's all.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I think the issue was partially that the questions you were asking me were very specific, and I think you knew in asking them that there was no way for me to have that information off the top of my head. But if there is information that we can provide, I will work with Crystal to provide it so that you feel as though your questions have been answered. But I think that was her point.
Professor Jaramillo?
I forgot to also mention, as the chemistry coordinator, I schedule chemistry classes, and it is always very difficult for me to offer a wide variety of classes during the winter because our adjuncts are not able to teach during our winter session and teach other places. So it really does influence their ability to teach for us during the intersessions.
Okay. Anything further, either here or on Zoom? Okay. Thank you, Dr. Androgenis.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
On to the next agenda item. And it's an individual for whom I'm very grateful for sitting through this meeting again, and for your patience with what happened during the last time you were invited. We have Dr. West here to present diversity in faculty hiring. I can use this microphone now. I have this pulled up here, and I believe I have continuity, so I can pull it up here. So I have the PRISM website up. And what else would you like me to have up at the moment? Oh, Dr. West, you need a microphone.
We are clearly in extraordinary times, and having a conversation around a future around diversity hiring seems a bit disconnected, but I hopefully get an opportunity to connect it in. So I'm going to ask you to pair off with one other person in the room, go find somebody, do the social distancing thing, whatever floats your boat. And there's two things you're talking about. One, what are you feeling about the events that are happening around you? And then the second part of the question is, when faculty diversity hiring comes up, what do you feel, think, and react to? So find one other person in the room, general thoughts, reactions, and then also when faculty diversity hiring, the subject comes up, what comes to mind for you? So if you are on dialing it in, then please take an opportunity to simply write notes to yourself as well, and we'll take feedback in 5 minutes. Again, you turn to one other person, general thoughts about the world as you face it right now, and then when faculty diversity hiring comes up, what comes to mind for you? Please, go. If you're online, you're just simply taking notes to yourself. If you're online, you're doing notes for yourself, please.
I actually broke them up into rooms. And so if you would repeat your directive through this microphone, so that they can hear you, is great.
So if you are online on Zoom, please make sure that you are doing two things. One, you're focusing on sort of your reactions to the world that's around you. The second part of it is that when the term faculty diversity hiring comes to mind, how do you react? We'll do a couple minutes. Thank you.
What I was like, okay, I was going to show my PowerPoint, and then, okay, I got to flip up the whiteboard and write something because I don't have a stylus yet. It's okay. Today was a crazy day. just trying to get us all to work and tell everyone and answer the same question 50 times. Just trying to reassure you. It's fine. We're going to work it out. Don't worry. This week is 6 exams. Crazy stress studies. The exam.
For diversity and hiring.
I mean, what I think is I don't know what other than I don't know where else
I always think of diversity. I mean, ethnicity, of course, but then I think of it as also at this point, like transgender.
Yeah, that's why I said like I didn't know like that that's like it looks like everywhere. In fact, I know there's a difference between the faculty and ethnicity. Where else there are sort of disparities. But yeah,
I think with our hiring process, we need to garner that, even with
Take another minute or so. Take another minute or so, please. Thank you.
I mean, it's hard to know so far because all I have to do, but it does seem like
All right. How do I,
Are you sharing the slides with them, Matt?
Oh, yes, I can share the screen. Okay.
It's the one right under the blue.
Oh, just the whole window. Got it. Thank you. So now the folks on Zoom will be able to see this as well. This tab is the Prism, and then this tab is the YouTube.
Got it.
Okay. Thanks, man.
Not show them again. So we're going to take a couple of responses from folks that are in the room, either part of the, sort of where you are today and thoughts around diversity in hiring. Anybody? And let me put a name with the name of the face, folks, please. Thoughts about where you are today or diversity in hiring, and I'll also transition to folks on Zoom in a second. Anybody?
Professor Hinsman.
I'll run and get the sanitizer. I just wanted to share an experience that I had just recently. I was on a hiring committee for a management position here at PCC, and we did the paper screening blind. So they removed the names of the candidates from all their documents. They removed the colleges that they graduated from. And so we really just had to do our paper screening without that sort of, we all have subconscious biases that triggers and things. And so it was very interesting to do the paper screening without any sort of gender, pronoun, ethnicity attached to the papers. And HR reported that we invited to be interviewed a much broader, more diverse pool than they typically see. And so it seemed anecdotally that blind paper screening was one way to improve the diversity of the pool that we brought for interviews. And it was an interesting experiment.
So utilizing blind paper screening worked for you. What was the position, if I could ask? What was the position, if I could ask?
It was the HR manager, director of HR.
Okay,
Not
thanks. Thank you. One more. Thoughts, reactions, either part of the World Today or when faculty diversity hiring comes up. Either, please.
Professor, if this table can join us, that would be great. Thank you. Professor Constantine?
Yes, well, we did wish we had some more time to talk about how everyone felt. I think I could speak from a personal perspective. As someone who came to the U.S. and attended college, both private and public institutions, I was telling the other people at the table that I could probably count, or probably on one hand, how many faculty I've had of particularly African diaspora. As a faculty member myself, I have faced discrimination, not at this institution, thank God, but elsewhere, which was difficult in itself. And I think we do need to, obviously there's a lot more that goes into diversity. There's sexuality, there's age and so forth. But I think if you analyze most institutions, you will see a lack of particular ethnicities in relation to faculty. And the question is, how do we not only use that to get more of those people in, but how do we level the playing ground so you actually feel, as a faculty member of African descent, that you have a legitimate chance when you get to that interview, to that sit down. So I hopefully think that PCC is doing all that it can to, especially when this latest hiring pool, to take these things into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't know if there's a response, but I did want to acknowledge Professor Luco. I do see your hand up, so just one moment, please.
Go for it.
No, I'm sorry. One moment, Professor Luco. Dr. West, go ahead.
No, go. Brother Luco.
Okay. Then Professor Luco.
Do I unmute? How do I do it?
I think she can unmute herself.
Professor Luco, you're on.
Maybe the hand was up from a previous thing. Okay.
Okay.
Professor Luco, if you have something, you'll have to raise your hand again because we just unraised it. Okay, Dr. West.
All right. I spent Friday afternoon on the 21st of February on campus. It was my 54th year on the planet, so why one spends one's birthday on the campus, I'll never know, but I'm crazy that way. The person I spent the time with was Professor Anthony Francoso. And I'm going to use Francoso as an example about what I mean about looking at hiring. I'm in the Social Sciences Division. We have an expectation of delivery of about 54 hours. And in that 54 hours, if you're doing anything when it comes to pedagogy, the ideal scenario would be what happened in the room here. That dyad would turn into 4 people. The 4th person would be a small learning community. It's a cohort-based model in which we have a ratio of 1 to 40. If you're talking about a total of 54 course hours, it means that beyond what happens in pedagogy, you get in every class period anywhere about 2 or 3 sort of moments. And what I mean by moment, it's typically the transition from small group instruction to reading apprenticeships or whatever else is going on. And it's in those moments and those interactions in which you get an opportunity to make a recommendation to the Freeman Center. You make a recommendation to DSPS. You make a recommendation to the Transfer Center. They don't happen a lot, and you've only got 54 if you're doing face-to-face instruction. What I watched happen on that Friday afternoon was, first of all, he's on campus on a Friday afternoon taking care of the business of being an advisor for 2 clubs and organizations. 2 of those clubs and organizations are marginalized students on our campus, incarcerated, and folks who are coming here for the first time. And in each of those situations, a student walked up to him to engage. And so think about the faculty from this perspective. More likely than not, Francoso is going to pull the majority student population here, which is now 51% Latino. We're an Hispanic serving institution. It means that if his success and completion rates, again, disproportionately Latino for that particular academic year, he's going to go 40 times 5 times 2 semesters, maybe he'll teach in the winter and the summer. If his success and completion rates go up to 80% success, 80% completion, we disproportionately impact Latino numbers because they're going to be coming to his class. You multiply that by 5 years. And so when I talk about the issue of faculty diversity and hiring, I mean that in those 54 course hours that happen in any academic semester, the 3 moments that happen in every class over the number of class periods are magnified by the likelihood of, we know from the research, of that sort of engagement that says, I'm going to listen and engage with this individual, not because they phenotypically express me, because there's something about that person's experience that I'm going to connect to, which gets us into a moment of saying, why are you here? Are you here for a credential? Are you here to transfer? Are you here for an opportunity for your family? And how can we get connected in the service? It's not an automatic. It's not simply because a person has black or brown skin that that's going to be something that happens instantaneously. What I saw happen on that Friday afternoon is, in many ways, what is the best of what happens at a community college. Students interacting with a faculty member, because there's something about that faculty member, despite the fact that he's an extraordinary instructor, he should be a RISA runner at this institution before he leaves his place. 2, he's a club advisor, which means he's connected with other students. But 2, over multiple years, it's going to be a cohort-based model that's going to impact the rest of the social science division as well as the natural sciences. The last piece to think about is that if we have a directive is that by 2027, there's 100% completion of the achievement gap. That means that the groups that we're looking at disproportionately are going to be Black and Latino, which we have the highest achievement gap looking at. So this isn't about simply putting a Black man or a Latino man, Latino woman in front of a classroom. This is around the combination of cultural competency, phenotypic engagement, and also, if you add one more layer to what Frank Kosel is doing, he's also engaged in the community, which means that he's also taking students and putting them into an opportunity of paid and unpaid internships in which they're going to have skills that they're going to need to be able to move into the workforce. And that's what we get with one faculty member. So again, success and completion numbers go up, engagement goes up, cohort transition goes up, disproportionate impact goes up, just by a series of making careful choices. There's one more thing I can ask you to do, and because we've had a transition from Whitlock being able to do our EEO training, we have access to a couple of programs. I'm going to show you a video for the program and then follow up right now. This is the PRISM program out of the University of Southern California. If you're on Zoom, you can turn it into your screen and see it. Which one?
Right there.
This one?
But you were right there. It's
My PRISM?
right on these words right here.
Oops, sorry.
Yeah, right there. Press play, and then you can go full screen.
The sound?
More racially and ethnically diverse than ever before.
Our local communities are being shaped by new voices and important conversations. They are moving us toward becoming more inclusive.
Our campuses are also changing in ways that challenge us to think and see our workforce differently.
We ask ourselves, are we ready?
What if there was a way to easily identify and recruit highly skilled talent, racially and ethnically diverse professionals poised for careers in higher education?
What if there was a platform that allowed us to create targeted job postings and establish professional relationships with prospective candidates?
And what if that still wasn't enough? What if there were also dynamic resources that could help our institutions better achieve professional equity?
What if there was one place for us to access it all? Now there is.
Welcome to PRISM.
So not only do we have the PRISM program, Matt sent out an email to you that through the Center for Urban Education, there's a series of seminars that have been made available to all of the faculty on the campus connected into the various stages of the recruitment process. I'm going to challenge every academic senator, be that at home or be at Zoom or be that is going to be reviewing this, is that I'm going to ask you to create a process that happens in your division connected into each of those seminars. Meaning that it is an invitation to, but everything that we know, since it has nothing to do when it comes mandated from the administration, it has to be driven from the academic senate. And the request is for the academic senate, individual senators in your areas to send out an email saying, these are the seminars that we have available. We wanted to set up an opportunity for folks to see them, but not to simply see them collectively, but have an opportunity for feedback. We're going to be offline 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, possibly more. One of the ways that one can connect with other faculty members is by looking at something that it's connected into content. It's connected to something in which we can have opportunities for faculty to engage online about subject areas going to be critically important. This world is going to change. There is no doubt about that. The events that we're going to see for the next 3 or 4 weeks are going to be the events that faculty members that we're hiring moving forward are going to have to grapple with. Whether it's a person we're hiring in nursing who's going to figure out a different way of delivering service to students that are going to be coming into their operation, whether it's culinary, whether it's psychology, the faculty of the future that we're going to be bringing in are going to have to grapple with this, and they're going to have to meet the challenge of the president's institution, which is that by 2027, every individual who wants to come to this campus is going to complete their experience, which means that every hire that we do moving forward has to be a hire with that in the forefront. So what I'm asking you as senators to do is not passively simply say, yeah, go ahead and do this over the next 3 or 4 weeks, because we know what happens with that. We know that people are not going to participate. They just simply put it into their inbox and it's going to go away. But to the extent that you as senators reach out to your constituents and ask the question, you know what, this is not simply a priority of the President's institution. It's not a priority of the Board of Trustees. This is a priority for me because I think it's important as we move forward. That alone is going to get at least 2 or 3 people to take a look at it and to create an opportunity for engagement and dialogue. I ask you to be safe over the next 3 or 4 weeks. I'm asking you to engage with your students over the next 3 or 4 weeks. They're going to need us. But more importantly, I want you to think about the long-term future of this institution. And the future of this institution is connected to faculty hiring. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. West. Do we still have time on this item? We have 1 minute. Is there any response on anybody's part? Does anybody have anything that they want to chime in with during this last minute? Either in the room or on Zoom? Professor Rose.
So Dr. West referenced 2 resources, the PRISM recruitment tool and Dr. West referred to 2 resources that are available to us as faculty. One was the PRISM recruitment tool, and the other one was the training modules that are also out of the Center for Urban Education at USC. I'm wondering if you could kind of reshare those in some kind of way for the Senate at some point.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. So concludes that agenda item. And thank you again, Dr. West. The next item is, yes. We're calling an audible here. This is going to be myself and Dr. Androgenis. I was a part of a meeting this afternoon. It was a lunch meeting and they brought food. Who knew? If I'd known, I would have shown up last week. I was double booked. But there were a lot of people in the room, a lot of management in the room, folks who are responsible for making some of the decisions that we've been seeing. And I wanted to share with you, well, this is in response to a request last week that was made to keep this agenda item on our agendas for the foreseeable future. So this is an information update. I'm not going to give you any medical information. I'm not the right person for that. I'm going to share with you. I'm not that kind of doctor. Dr. Androgenis. I'm not that kind of doctor. But what I'm going to share with you is part of the campus response and some of the conversations that we've been having. First, if you've traveled to a highly impacted country or have been exposed to COVID-19, please self-quarantine yourself until you have been medically cleared. This is a medical doctor has told you you're in the clear, go be in public again. Rooms are being sanitized nightly. There was talk about bringing the night shift on for the day, like during the day, to bolster cleaning efforts. Some buildings may have reduced access in the coming days and weeks. Employees will be informed about which entrances are open. For instance, the C building needs to be accessed by people, but it may not be that every door is unlocked. And so you'll be notified as to which doors to enter. This can also help us limit presence on campus. It helps campus police know what they can watch, like which doors to watch and that sort of thing, so that authorized personnel are on campus. By the way, right now, we are all authorized personnel. We are all employees. And on that note, though, please bring your staff ID to campus should you be asked to present it. Facilities is working on developing a list of rooms that do not need to be accessed so that once they're cleaned, they can be just set aside, and then other targeted cleaning can be done on rooms that are still in use. And faculty have been asked to remove piles of paper from their desktops. I don't mean computer, because if there are piles of paper on your desktop, the facilities crew will not clean your desktop. They aren't going to disturb your work, is the point there. So if you want your surfaces cleaned and sanitized, help them help you. There was talk of, I'm just saying there was talk because frankly I was eating and I'm not sure which decisions have been made and which haven't, but Dr. Indrajanis is here to clear up some of this maybe. She was probably paying attention as well. But there was talk of locking down the parking lots, the student parking lots, not the staff parking lots, the student parking lots, because we have members of the public who are apparently taking advantage of the fact that the Wi-Fi spills out into the parking lots. And so there's an effort to reduce that, and they will potentially consolidate staff parking lots as well. Right now, staff can park in various lots. They may, this I do remember was a possibility, they may consolidate the staff parking lot. Again, you're going to be notified via email if that's the case. For students who are troubled with not being able to get Wi-Fi, and that's why they're on the in the parking lots, that sort of thing. Apparently, Spectrum has a free Wi-Fi offer going on right now that apparently students know about. Who knew? They share information. Associated students still needs to meet. They are kind of obligated to meet, and they're working through some of the same issues that I am working through, and as well the Board of Trustees are working through, which is how can we have a Brown Act compliant meeting that is open to the public if the campus is closed to the public? That's still a question mark, as far as I know. I mean, it was 3 hours ago, 3.5 hours ago. The Board of Trustees will still meet in here on Wednesday. They will be as spread out as we are. I did ask, the question came up, pardon? Maybe even more spread out. Yeah. I did ask if there was a way to have W's excused at this point in time. And the response was that vice presidents of student services throughout the state, I'm not saying every one of them, but multiple vice presidents, have asked the chancellor's office for information regarding withdrawals. There are two issues, like if they withdraw, would they get a refund if they paid? But then if they were on financial aid and some aid was already issued, that can be problematic, so that's something that needs to be worked out. But then also, it was, can they withdraw without a penalty because for whatever is going on in their worlds, right? 4 o'clock, I was told a meeting would occur. I expect to get some information from Dr. Olivo on that, but the recommendation that was made was the withdrawal date doesn't occur, like you can get, if a student drops now, or if a student drops sometime in May, it's still a W. So wait, W for wait, sorry for that. Wait until we get information regarding the withdrawal situation, because whatever is going to happen now is the same thing that will happen in 1 or 2 months' time. So there's that. There's conversation about how to make up time for classes that can't go online, and kind of the go-to models are auto. I forget what the other one is. Alex, yeah, welding, that's it. Welding and auto, like they don't bring your acetylene torch home. So what would happen in that case? We aren't sure. But that conversation is being had. Regarding messaging, the best thing that anybody can do is check the website. The website is updated regularly. And there has been talk, there have been decisions made regarding decision points. That is to say, we have been told that we will be resuming operations as normal on April 20th. But a decision has to be made ahead of time as to whether or not April 20th is still going to be the date. And so, for instance, the Monday before spring break is kind of like the go button on that one. If we haven't heard any other news by the Monday of before spring break, then we can count on, or we can expect, I don't think we can count on anything right now, April 20th. But so anyway, the decisions that have to be made, there has been a timeline that has been set out, and there are decision points. And I'm sharing that because it was shared with me, but also so that you know that folks who are making decisions are thinking long and hard about the implications and how that needs to be done. Finally, we are asked, and this is a little bit touchy because we're asked to check our emails regularly. And I know that this could be a working condition issue. It is not intended to be a working condition issue. It is a communication venue that employees are being asked to check their emails regularly for information. Do with that what you will at this point. Not even at this point, it is a request. So the request is made that if you're not on campus, that you're still maybe checking in your email. It is a request, not a demand. Okay. Dr. Andronis, do you have anything to add to any of that? And then can you give me the sanitizer? I don't know how to turn this on. Oh, there it is. Oh, would you please use this mic?
Won't touch your stuff either.
Now you have clean hands. That's all good.
Now I have clean hands. Okay, so at about 5 o'clock, an email will be going out that will have a lot of this information in it. How many of you saw the governor's press conference yesterday? Anybody? Okay, so you know from that very long meeting that he laid out a lot of information about task forces that are meeting right now, and he referenced a lot of things coming out tomorrow on Tuesday. He said a lot of guidelines would come out. He articulated some concerns about particular populations. He recommended that all individuals who are 65 or older, as well as individuals with underlying conditions, health conditions such as cardiac diabetes or an autoimmune disorder, that they home isolate. But in saying that, he also said, and one of our jobs as a state is to figure out how to make sure these people get food. There's a recognition that you can't just tell people to go home. And what if they don't have a way to get food? What if they don't have all of that? So that was one piece of it. And I think we'll see some guidelines coming out. And obviously you'd heard that, reduce the number of people who are in group together. He had said 250 last week. It's basically been changed from 100 down to 50, and then the President of the United States said 10 today. So we keep getting different guidelines. In response to many of the CEOs reaching out to Eloy Oakley, they sent out some information last night at about 10:41, and basically it reflected what the governor said, but it also said that, I'll go really quick. It also said that things are going to be different, and recommending things about, what the governor said, people who are 65 or older, all of that. So one of the reasons that another email is coming out is that we need to deal with that, because we have staff and administrators and people on this campus who are over the age of 65. We have people who have cardiac diabetes and other underlying conditions, and we need to follow the guidance. But when you do that, you also have a human resources piece of it. And so the purpose of the email is to explain what happens. Now, Originally what we said was instruction would be online through April 20th, and then we were closing the campus closing the campus to the public and students until March 29th. What we're doing is we're going to put those two dates together. So the campus is officially closed from tomorrow through April 20th to students and the public. We will have individuals here on campus, but we are going to try to be as flexible and creative as possible to see who can work remotely. And we want each area to work with their vice president to figure out, because what we want to do is have people feel safe. I mean, the fact is, taking students off this campus takes off 30,000 people. So that does help. But we still have to be mindful of the fact that we have people who fall in those categories. So, and I know a lot of people have asked about student employees. Right now, what we're trying to do is figure out how they too can do some remote work. So if they're student tutors, can they tutor at home? The question of, do we pay them, can we just pay them anyway? We don't have guidance on that, but we are seeking the guidance, because obviously we do not want to harm students in any way, but we're kind of in this no person's land. We are also putting together a mobile food pantry, where, similar to how the K-12 districts are doing it, where people can come and drive through to pick up food. We're getting that organized so that our food insecure students can access food too. We're also, in addition to Spectrum, we're trying to figure out where the technology needs are. So it's a very long way of saying that, as I said last week, this is very fluid. The information we have right now is different from the information we had 24 hours ago, 24 hours from now, and we keep updating the information. So please do read your email. We have heard that some students aren't getting some of our communications, so we are going to expand it out to any address they have given us. We will send the information. We also have heard from faculty that you all would really love to see what we're sending to students so that you see it. So we're going to also try to do that too. I know Alex is going to work on that so that you're fully informed of what's going on.
While you're taking a breath, I'm going to ask if anybody has a comment or question, then I'm going to go ahead and ask for first a motion to extend. Professor Cairo has moved to extend by 10 minutes, seconded by, I'll say, Dr. Chaffee, a lot of other people, and we'll do that by unanimous consent unless anybody objects. Oh, thank you, Professor Jerome. Okay, back to you.
Okay, so, and as Matt already said, we are having the Board of Trustees meeting here on Wednesday. Ideally, we will have the April 15th meeting virtually, but we have 7 trustees who may or may not have the same level of technology at home, as well as training, so we're going to spread out. And all I've asked is that unless you absolutely positively feel like you need to be here at the board meeting on Wednesday, please don't come. We're trying to reduce the number of people who are here just down to the people who need to be here. And let's see, is there anything I've left out? I think. We are absolutely looking at how we are impacted in terms of some programs that we may or may not be able to continue because they are so lab-based. One issue we're having is with clinicals. You know, the hospitals are turning away our students, not because our student nurses don't want to be there, but because there is not personal protective equipment for our students in addition to the hospital personnel. So, but what we haven't gotten is guidance from the Chancellor's Office, guidance from the Board of Registered Nursing about how to manage that. So we are acutely aware that we need to figure that out, especially for those clinically based programs. The guidance that's come from the Chancellor's Office forecasts that this could go even into June, suggests that colleges think about doing virtual graduations, and also indicates that there's some thought that this will cycle around again in August and September. So we need to think about what is a permanent solution at least for this academic year and subsequent academic years. It's really hard to know, which is why I am reluctant to say, okay, until June, because this is a dynamic situation. So we're bookending it. We're saying, okay, April 20th, that's the date, but we will make sure people know ahead of that what's happening. And I think I think everybody is doing a great job. I appreciate how everyone is bringing up ideas. You can imagine we're getting lots of questions. We're encouraging people to use the question form on the website, because sometimes a question you have is absolutely something we haven't thought about, and there might be a population or a service or something out there that we haven't figured out that we need to be serving. So the more you give us information, I have had some interesting suggestions, including my favorite, which came this afternoon, that the solution is that we should just assign an A to every student in every class and be done with spring semester. And we're done. Everybody goes home, everybody has an A, and we're all good.
Did that come from a student by chance?
In fact, it did. Who said that other students thought it was a great idea too? It's like, I'm not sure we can do that. So unless anybody has any questions, again, another email will come out this afternoon, and I know it's a lot of emails that come, and I apologize in advance for having you feel like we just keep pushing information, but the more information we give you, the more you feel like you know what's going on, and also that you can ask us questions if we haven't thought of something.
Yeah, my 32 emails up there, that was a 0 earlier today.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I'm actually going to flip this time. I'm going to offer the remote participants the first opportunity to share. I hope that's acceptable. Does anybody on Zoom have a comment or a question? Professor Rigon.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Hello. I only have a comment, and I'm speaking because I am Italian and I have all my family in Italy, and I have friends who have lost parents recently, and I just want to say to everyone that this precaution is really necessary. Mm-hmm. And many students that came out from small town in Veneto, that is the region where I am, showed that the majority of the people that contact the virus is asymptomatic. And therefore, it's very important that we really practice social isolation for the time being. And I'm really confident that if we all participate and we all take the responsibility, the curve definitely will flatten, and we will preserve the life of many people. And thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Professor Rigon.
Thank you.
Anybody else on Zoom want to weigh in or comment or a question? Okay. Professor Rigon, would you please? Thank you. All right. Anybody in the room now? I saw Professor Fiebig's hand, Professor Cairo's hand. I'll have the hand sanitizer to you in just a minute.
Okay, hi everyone, Jennifer Fiebig in psychology. I just had a question because we in psychology are hiring 3 faculty.
Yes.
Have we decided what's happening? Are we bringing people on campus?
So we are,
etc.
Yeah, we're in the process of figuring that out. We definitely need to go forward with hiring. I mean, we have 72 positions open right now in this district, and so we can't just stop. For example, I'm doing some 3rd level interviews for a department, I think on Friday, and what I've said is, if it's Zoom, it's Zoom. If it's in person, it's in person. I think what we have to do is leave it up to the committee and leave it up to the candidates. But yes, we will be going forward with hiring. The mechanics are just going to take a little bit to get in order, but we are going forward.
Professor Caro?
First thing, a suggestion, then a question. So far, what I've seen from the facilities, they're doing a fabulous job in terms of limiting transmission. Suggestion, while the campus is open, maybe certain doors like that lead into the buildings can be left open. No longer, people don't have to touch the handles,
Okay.
perhaps. Second, this concerns some faculty. I would be one of them. I have a very, very old computer. It doesn't have the little camera.
Yes.
And so I know we have the no interest loan program, but unfortunately I found out today that when I went to Best Buy and brought the invoice here, Best Buy no longer accepts PCC checks. So they recommend I go to Caltech, but the difference between the computer at Caltech and Best Buy was about 40%. So it's a big difference. So I'm wondering if the college would be willing to suspend some of its procedures in issuing out these checks. So rather than giving it to Best Buy or whatever store, they could give it to the faculty so they can then go ahead and buy the computer, and then we can provide that invoice to the college to verify that it was used for that purpose.
Well, actually, what we're asking faculty to do is to work with your deans about what your technology needs are. We don't actually want people going out and buying equipment themselves, just because ultimately we're going to need to be able to manage that equipment.
Right. Unfortunately for me, I use a Mac, and there are no more Mac laptops.
Okay.
And so I know when I went to do my Canvas training, they were using the PC. So while in the process saying do this, do that, I was trying to figure out how to do that on the commands, because I'm familiar with the Mac. So there are no Macs laptops available for me to use. Thank
Okay, but definitely be in contact with your dean, because in some cases it involves getting cameras to folks to attach to whatever kind of computer they have versus actually getting a whole new computer. But we also want to manage that, just because ultimately we'll need to support whatever it is that ultimately gets purchased.
Okay, thank you. Professor Rapu?
Danielle Rapu, library. So I heard earlier that there was the mention of for students to look into the Spectrum or Comcast for internet services.
It's Spectrum.
Yeah, well, both are offering it.
Oh, are
I've
they?
looked
Okay,
into
great.
it. InternetEssentials.com for Comcast, by the way. But what is the college doing for our students? Is there active plans right now to get technology for them, like hotspots and things like that? I ask this because I've had some questions sent to our social media accounts, and we want to provide responses, but at the same time we don't want to provide responses we don't have the authority to give. And being that our building's closed, I don't know what to tell these students. So I'm just curious, is there active plans we can at least tell them there's something on the way?
There are plans, and actually that'll be part of, it will be included in an email that goes out to students today. And the information about these internet options is out there. We also are we're working with both student services and counseling and instructional faculty through their deans who have said we have students who need computers. Basically what we've done is we've gone through the campus and commandeered pretty much every laptop, every iPad we can, and we're trying to deploy those first to faculty and counselors, because they need to do offsite instruction, and then we're going to try to figure out how much we have a demand for students, and we don't know what the demand is yet, so we're collecting that data. But in the meantime, if we can at least get access to Wi-Fi, I think that's huge, because there are many students out there who have a phone but no Wi-Fi, or a whatever device but no Wi-Fi. So that's our first priority, and it appears that some corporations are stepping up and providing free Wi-Fi.
Matt, I'm sorry, it's time.
Okay.
Oh, we've had one extension. There can be one more 10-minute extension. Professor Winter is making a motion to extend by 10 minutes. He has motioned his motion to me, and it has been seconded, I'll say, by Professor Rose, and we'll do this by unanimous consent. Any objections? Any objections online? 10 minutes. Professor Altunji.
There was an email that went out today from the FA regarding pass, no pass. I want to be very mindful that this highly impacts students transferring, so just so that everyone in the room kind of knows that if we go pass, no pass, that may prevent students from being able to transfer to UC altogether, because there are limitations.
Exactly. Changing students to pass, no pass is not necessarily a good thing for students in the long run, because we only control one piece of the puzzle. If the UCs or the CSUs or the private institutions who are on the receiving end of our students don't accept it, we're not helping them. Now, those institutions might take a different turn, which is again why I think Matt's W is for wait. Like, if wherever possible, encourage students to wait to make a decision, the better, because more information will come available. So maybe we will get some sort of regulatory relief either at the state level, at the federal level, from our transfer partners. It's too early in this process to know that. So hopefully we can support the students as well as we can. And I know this is, you know, as I've said in other venues, there's no playbook for this. This is not anything any of us could have prepared for or had a game plan for. And so that's why having your questions is so important, or having your comments about, have you thought about this, or this is a concern, is so important, because we're not going to think about every eventuality. And we just keep putting pressure on the state to help us with, okay, so what are you going to do about, just getting them to agree. We could do a blanket distance education memo to them saying, hey, these are all the classes that are suddenly now going to be distance ed because we need to get authorization. Getting that was huge, and that was huge for them. But they're also trying to figure it out because they've got 114 colleges across the state doing 114 different things at this point.
Okay, thank you. Are there any further questions either online or in the room? Okay.
Okay.
Professor Allen.
My question is specific to the cosmetology program.
Mm-hmm.
Being Gumby, we let them all go on Friday, hoping that they could come back and do labs on Wednesday. And since we've worked it out, not all of them have all of their tools. Would I be allowed to let the students come possibly tomorrow to gather up their belongings?
Yes, absolutely. Okay. Because, and I did share that idea with Terry about how to deal with the, cutting hair and all that. Yeah. Yes, I think so. I mean, you didn't know that was going to be the case. So yes, absolutely.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And if anybody gives you a hard time, just say the president said so.
We have it on video.
Yeah. The other thing I just want to point out too is that we're going to utilize this opportunity. A crisis is a terrible thing to waste. We're going to use this opportunity to do some deep cleaning of our classrooms, which I think we can all agree needs to happen. So we do have the issue of, if you want your desk to be cleaned, you got to make sure that your papers are out of the way. But in terms of going building by building, really cleaning the classrooms, this is a great opportunity to do a deep clean. So we will be doing that, and it'll be important, especially as more and more of our supplies that we've ordered have come in. We'll be able to do the deep cleaning, and then we'll be able to do the disinfecting, which is also important.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
You are so welcome. All right, thank you, and again, thank you so much to everyone. I can't tell you how proud I am of everybody for being so flexible, wanting to do the best for students, and I just really appreciate it, so thank you.
For those of you online and for the recording, Dr. Indranjana said she's proud of us. Okay. Next up is Dr. Alvarado, who has graciously agreed to appear here. I asked her to just speak a little bit about, she is the chair of the Faculty Committee on Online Education and the co-chair of the District Campus Distance Education Committee, to give us nuts and bolts about online ed and possibly answer any questions. She can be, if she doesn't mind. I don't mind.
That's all right. Thank you for that. So to be very clear, I chair the Faculty Distance Education Committee and I co-chair the Campus Distance Education Committee. I am not here on behalf of the FA or the Distance Education Department or the Office of Instruction. So that being said, our priority is that there is instructor-to-student contact. That is the main thing that needs to occur, is for us not to leave our students hanging. And if that means that the first instructor-to-student contact is from your PCC email address to their PCC email address through LancerPoint, if that is the starting point, then that is okay. And from there, we're hoping that we can move faculty to start putting some of their materials onto Canvas. Our second priority is replacing seat time. Now, I don't expect that all of the time that would have been devoted to being in your classroom is going to be made up with online education. It's just not possible. So I'm not talking about busy work, but whatever student learning outcomes you had for your course from now until the end, find a way to still give students that instruction. So I've been working with faculty for the past couple of days to move their classes online. I developed this worksheet. It's just one resource for helping faculty think through the process of moving their classes from face-to-face to online. This resource, as well as others, is on the PCC Faculty Remote Instruction Resource Canvas site that's been emailed out from the Distance Education Department several times now. Thinking towards the future, if this is more sustained, a secondary concern is student-to-student contact. So I want you all to be thinking about how you can incorporate chats, group work, discussion forums, conferencing, to get students to be able to interact with one another. That being said, I don't want you to reinvent the wheel. So these resources probably already exist out there for most of your classes. So check Canvas Commons, which is the area where people throughout the world who use Canvas put resources so that others can access them. Look for YouTube videos that might communicate the same ideas that you'd be doing in your lectures. Look for OER resources, library resources. If you use a publisher textbook, access that publisher material. You might be able to find quizzes, exams, lectures that are already there as a jumping off point for your courses. The faculty committee will be meeting tomorrow, 12 until 1 p.m. in the Social Sciences Learning Center, which is C315. You are welcome to join me there in person. If you would like to join via Zoom, the number to join us is 192-644-010. I'll say that again, 192-644-010. We do allow public comments in our meeting, so you're welcome to join, and the faculty committee would love to hear from you. That's tomorrow from 12 until 1 o'clock in the Social Sciences Learning Center, which is C315, or via Zoom. 192-644-010.
Okay, does anybody have any, I'll just say questions for Dr. Alvarado? Professor Rose?
Thank you, Thea. I've been meeting with a lot of adjunct faculty who are from non-credit, and they don't have Canvas shells for their classes, and their students don't typically use Pasadena.edu emails. So they were asking if their contact can be through personal emails with students.
So the preference would be Canvas, and if not Canvas, PCC email, and if not email, however you can contact your students to get them to respond is what we're going to go with right now. They should be able to get a Canvas shell, and their students should be able to get a PCC email address if they don't have one already, or should be able to forward to their personal email address from their PCC email so that they can maintain that contact with their instructor.
Is there a preferred way that they request that Canvas shell so that there, should it be more kind of a concerted effort from the coordinator of the program, or should each of those individual adjunct faculty be contacting?
So as I understand it, there have been Canvas shells created for every course. If not, I would reach out directly to the distance education staff who are working on overtime right now trying to get everything together. The best way to reach them right now would probably be to pop into one of these workshops that they're having. They have several a day this entire week to be able to speak to someone directly, because it really is just a matter of them having the time to sit at the computer, punching in the buttons to get that shell ready for them.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else, either here or online? Can I have a motion to hear from a member not of this body? Professor Hansman, is there a second? Professor Cairo, all in favor, please say aye, or say yes online, please. Thank you. Professor Hanley.
I was just going to say, if anyone is having trouble getting Canvas shells set up, there is a Canvas for Teachers site that looks nearly identical to what we use, and anyone can set up a Canvas shell in a matter of minutes. And you just send a link to your students. It's relatively easy for anyone who's tech savvy, but you don't have to be associated with any school. So anyone could do this remotely.
That was Canvas for Teachers?
Canvas for Teachers or Free for Teachers.
.com or something? Okay. Google Canvas for Teachers, apparently. Okay. Professor Constantine.
Yes. Hi. Since we are asking students to submit assignments online, what would you recommend the message to them be if they don't have experience uploading? Like, for example, I teach public speaking, and instead of giving a speech face to face, they now have to record their speech and upload a video. Since the campus, as far as I'm hearing, was going to be closed for students, what would you recommend the message be to the students to get help, those who are not familiar with technology?
That really is up to you as the instructor and how you want to make it work for your class. So I know that some instructors are asking students to record video on their phone and submit that through Canvas. If it's just a presentation they're doing, perhaps putting together the slides and making them descriptive enough that that explanation isn't necessary would work. You could rely on Confer Zoom and have the student maybe call in with their phone and deliver their speech to you through telephone as you hear it through Confer Zoom. That's another way that you could do it as well.
Okay. Professor Hinsman?
I just want to say that, I mean, there are tons and tons of videos already out on YouTube explaining how to use Canvas. And so if you just go to YouTube and say, how do I upload a video? You will get a good tutorial, and you can just share that link with your students. And it's really much easier on their end than it is on our end to do it. So, I mean, don't spend a lot of time reinventing the wheel. Do a little bit of searching online first. And then when you find something good, share it with your colleagues.
Okay. Anybody online or in the room want to add anything else or ask anything else? Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Alvarado. We're going to skip the next agenda item. The presenter has left the room, and because I asked her if it was okay to skip the next item. It seems that speech, time, place, and manner isn't as relevant right now. I don't think we're going to be having folks coming to campus to deliver any speeches for the moment. So a new business, I'm just going to, thank you, Professor Rose. For new business, the next item up is actually the EEO plan update. I'll just say the same thing I said last time in the interest of time. We are being asked to we're being asked to provide recommendations for updating the EEO plan. The EEO plan, the current EEO plan was sent out to you along with the packet. Because this is not a voting item and because of the current state of affairs, what I'm going to ask is that all Senate representatives, and I will follow this with an email to all Senate representatives and alternates, if you have recommendations for updating the EEO plan, I ask that you simply email me directly. You've had a week or so to look at the EEO plan, although I haven't had time to do a lot in the last week that I thought I would be able to do. So we do have a deadline of basically next Friday to offer any recommendations for updating the EEO plan. And so I ask that you just simply send me the recommendations by email. And as I said before, I have been told that they will be incorporated as appropriate. Okay, not a voting item. The next item on the agenda is by request of Professor Kuat. Academic Senate elections. I can bring you a microphone if you would like. You can come. Why don't we just keep using this microphone? We'll keep using this microphone for presenters.
Thanks for waiting. I'll be as speedy as I can be. The election committee does have all the paper ballots ready to go and will be distributed tomorrow. However, who's going to be here to use them is possibly a question. If the Senate feels it's important for purposes of participation that we move online with the election, that's a possibility. So I just brought that up as an issue. Unless you stop us, we'll just stick them in the mailboxes tomorrow and we'll vote as usual. But if you're concerned about participation and you want to get more, it could conceivably go online, but I have no idea how to do it. That's my announcement. So.
Got it. So I'll just ask, anybody on Zoom, does anybody have any objection to paper ballots for the Academic Senate officer elections going into your mailboxes tomorrow?
No.
Okay, I see a hand up. I can't make out the name.
Oh.
If your hand is up, just go ahead and speak. Janae? It's Gina. Gina. Oh, Gina L. My gosh. Okay, Professor Lopez, go ahead.
Some of us will not be back on campus. How will we be able to vote? Oh, there it is.
Okay, we'll say the point is has been made, and maybe that's a reason to move it online.
However, moving it online, well, we're not in a rush. That is, the spring plenary session no longer exists, so we don't need to finish it by then. We would have to find, the Senate would have to find some way to move the elections online.
Yeah,
if we wanted to do that.
To the point that Professor Q I just made, if I were a betting man, which I'm not, I would bet that I'm going to hear tonight that spring plenary is going to be postponed. In our bylaws, it says that our elections have to be concluded. I see your hand, Dr. Chavy. Elections have to be concluded by spring plenary, and we can't we can't suspend our bylaws. But the Executive Committee of the State of California's Academic Senate is meeting tonight via Zoom, so I don't get to watch my TV shows tonight. And in any case, that may be the reprieve of which Professor Kuat speaks. But I did see Professor Luco's hand up.
That you could do by yourself.
Okay. I'm getting, pardon me.
Sure.
I'm going to mute
Bring
everybody
a
because I
pencil.
don't know who that is. And then, no, we'll remain up here if you don't mind. Professor Luco, your hand was up. Do you still have something to contribute?
Hello.
Oh, yes.
I was just saying if there was a way to move it because timeline-wise, and that way people could get their ballots if we can't find a feasible way to do it online.
Yeah.
A safe, feasible way.
Yeah, well, I mean, if spring plenary is postponed, then it won't happen during our spring break, which is when it was scheduled for. Professor Chafee and then Professor Rose.
Maybe we could just agree now or vote now to say that assuming that the powers that be move to spring plenary, that we could just say that if that happens, then we move our voting date forward so that we don't have to have another talk about this. We could just say now that that's what's going to happen. Maybe. Would that be something that we could do officially? I'm asking you, Mr. President.
I understand. I don't see why not. It's a vote based on a contingent occurrence. Professor Rose.
Do we have any deadline as to when the elections would need to be completed by? I'm just thinking of schools like UCLA that have already extended online teaching all the way through June. And just with the way things are rolling out, we may not be back this semester. And in that eventuality, would we figure out a way to go online? Is there kind of a deadline for that? And I do know the students, the associated students, hold their elections online, though it has not been foolproof.
The only thing I know of is that the union generally votes their election after the Senate's election, just waiting their turn. But I don't know of any deadline other than what we've given ourselves.
Well, it's the deadline that we have is in the bylaws that just says the results will be announced before spring plenary.
Well, that gives us a whole year then, practically.
Professor Hinsman.
Okay, so as a former Luddite, I'm going to remind people there is snail mail. Instead of putting them in our campus boxes, could they be mailed to our homes?
There is a cost associated with it. I think that given the circumstances, the Senate can absorb the costs. I'm looking at our treasurer. I believe we have enough in our balance to do that. To mail them, to mail them using the U.S. Postal Service to our homes, and then we would return the ballots via mail to campus. Is that acceptable with the Nominations and Elections Committee Chair?
It's purely up to the Senate to vote any way they want to on it.
Okay. I was going to say I would entertain a motion. Professor Miranda has her hand up. Well, I still need to give you a microphone.
Just had a question. Do we do the vote right now, today, for that, if we wanted to do via email? I'm sorry, not email.
Right, postal service. That is, well, okay, so here's the thing. The Academic Senate is supposed to approve the timeline and procedure, or the Academic Senate Board. So during an Academic Senate meeting, we are to approve a timeline and a procedure by which the campus will vote in the election, by which the full-time faculty will vote in the election. And so the question is, does that need to be decided at today's meeting? The answer is no. I don't know when the next Academic Senate meeting will be. I have it scheduled for a week from today, and if I can pull it off, I will. The one sticking point is at least one person has to be in a location that is accessible by the public. Everybody else can be a remote attendee if you would like. A remote participant, I should say, if you would like. I think I've figured out the Zoom enough to be able to do that. However, it's got to be a location that's open to the public. And next week, starting tomorrow, I just heard the campus is closed to the public. So I'm not sure how I can work around that to have an Academic Senate meeting is the answer to your question. It is an I don't know. Professor Lang.
I also just have a clarification. Do you mean that if we're all online, for each vote you have to count the roll? One by one?
I think when the Brown Act was written 20 years ago, they did not envision Zoom. And using Zoom, we actually can easily see everybody in the room, can see everybody's votes. So you would be able to see that on your own computer as well. And I'm going to use that as our roll call vote. I'm going to take advantage of the technology. So I think that the decision needs to be made now. I would entertain a motion that the Academic Senate Board elections go out via U.S. Postal Service.
So moved.
Okay, Professor Kuat has made a motion. Is there a second? The second is by Professor Miranda. Professor Hintzman, your hand was up. You were going to make a motion. Okay. At this point, I'm going to take a screenshot in case, just so we have it. Is there any discussion on holding the Academic Senate officers' elections via postal mail? Any discussion? Professor Winter.
We're kind of doing this by mail, but we're not really discussing email, which seems a lot easier and quicker and cheaper and the whole bit. But I don't know what the problems are that Professor Rose has had with the elections she's been involved with email. So that's a question.
Okay, is there a response to that question? Professor Hintzman?
I think the problem with email is the confidentiality of my vote has been voided if it's coming from my email address. Right? Typically, our ballot goes into the secret envelope, which goes into the bigger envelope that I sign so that they can verify.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion? I see Professor Lang's hand. I see Professor Kuat's hand. I am getting, my gym didn't close until noon today. I got my workout in this morning.
I just want to make sure that there's enough time for the mail to arrive and then for people to pick it up and then mail it back and then process. So I don't know how many days in between.
That's what I was going to say. We may want to extend it by 2 weeks.
Well, we can amend the motion to be to include the extension in the event that spring plenary is postponed. So would anybody like to make such a motion for an amendment? Professor Chafee? Okay, is there a second to that, Professor Lang? Is there any discussion on the amendment to change the due date or to change the timeline for the election in the event that plenary is postponed? Any discussion? Okay, then I'm going to ask all those in favor here and online to please say aye if you approve.
We weren't specific.
We were not.
Two.
Aye.
Aye.
So what's the answer?
Yes button.
Okay.
Aye.
Yep. Okay. I'm taking the screenshot now. That motion. Well, are there any opposed? Use the no button if you are opposed. Okay. And are there any abstentions? At this point, just say your name if you're abstaining.
I have 8 bunnies. 8 bunnies up in the ground.
Okay. Then that motion, the amendment motion carries. Now back to the original motion, which is to hold academic senate election, the officers' elections via postal mail. I'm clearing all your votes. Is there any further discussion on having the senate elections via mail? Professor Kiewat.
That we need to have a specific deadline that we're moving to.
Okay, so in the event that spring plenary is moved, the recommendation is that we specify a date that the ballots will be due. To Professor Lang's comment or question, I believe postal mail generally takes 2 to 3 days when there's not a coronavirus going on. Okay, so let's count on 5 days each way. So 10 days in transit. Today is March 16th. 10 working days. Got it. Is this a recommendation?
Yes, the deadline was April Fool's, and this would be tax day.
The deadline had been April 1st based on the Senate's previous information. April 15th is actually the day that spring plenary starts. So you have actually inadvertently repeated the date, but the results don't have to be announced by then. Okay. So then elections would end on April 15th. It has to be postmarked by April 15th, or the ballot has to be here by April 15th? Here by April 15th. Is there a motion to make an amendment that ballots will be due here by April 15th? Professor Fiebig has made a motion. Okay, so how about if we go by so the comment by Professor Fiebig was that we include a postmark date using Professor Lang's suggestion or information. How about if we make that postmark date April 10th, provided that is not a Sunday? It is a Friday. So is there an amendment that envelopes mailed to PCC for this election have to be postmarked by April 10th? Is there a motion for that amendment? Professor Winter, is there a second? Professor Lang, any discussion on April 10th postmark, either here or online? Postmarked on or before April 10th? That's Professor Winter is saying that is his motion. All in favor of the amendment that postmarks must be made on or before April 10th, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Are there any opposed? And then if there are any abstentions, please say your name. That motion carries unanimously. Now we're back to the main motion, which was to hold academic senate officer elections via postal mail. Is there any further discussion on that? Okay. All in favor of holding Senate postal elections by mail to be postmarked by April 10th. Was there another amendment? On or before April 10th. Please say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Are there any opposed? Okay. I don't see any red marks. If there are any abstentions, please say your name. Well, that motion carries unanimously. Oh, thank you all for being unanimous on stuff. It makes things much easier. Thank you, Professor Kuat.
Thank you.
Professor Rose.
I'm sorry, I have a question related to this.
Okay. We haven't run out of time, have we?
No, will we be providing return postage, or will we have faculty provide their own stamp to return it?
Question was, will we be provided with return postage? I think that we will make the decision to provide the return postage.
I'll just say it really loud. I think that we should put the postage, or the Senate should pay for the postage on both ways, because how many of you guys actually have stamps at home? I mean, I do, but lots of people don't.
You don't get to call for a vote. I do. Yes. The Academic Senate will pay for the postage both ways. I know we have enough money in our accounts for that. Okay. We can buy a bulk rate. We'll do what we need. We'll do what we can to make sure that it is financially prudent, as per our bylaws anyway. Okay. I believe that exhausts the... I don't have a president's report because, folks, I have been very busy. I know. I apologize. I had to turn everything into online. And it's 5:15. I learned if the time to adjourn has occurred, actually I knew this a long time ago, I just recently remembered it, then we actually don't need a motion to adjourn. And so we are just going to say, this meeting is adjourned. I want to say thank you to everybody who showed up here, everybody who participated. I especially want to thank Staging Services. They were able to put this meeting together based on a request that I made on Thursday. I want to thank Judy Benson for taking care of that request. And just keep in, a round of applause. It's a sad round of applause. And I'd like for you to keep in your thoughts everybody who's been affected by this more than we have. Everybody who doesn't have the means to make the same decisions that we have. Everybody whose workplaces don't have the infrastructure that we have. We've been able to do a lot in a short time because of what has been in place. Reflect on that. See you next time. Well, I think that kind of works out. Let me know if